All right then, guys. Hope everyone's having a fantastic day. Hope everyone can hear me. If not, just let me know. And thank you for taking time out of your day to be with us to talk about Church360 Ledger and just creating all those transactions. It is vaguely an important part of any sort of accounting software. So, I think it might be useful to some of you. So we'll just go ahead and get started. So let's see. So my name is Taylor Brown. I am a software support technician here at Concordia, and I have been really enjoying it. Had to work Sundays at my old job and was like, I want to be involved in my church, and I guess God thought, why not be involved with more churches? So I've really been enjoying it here. So all phones and microphones have been muted, just so everybody can hear me. And if you have any questions, just feel free to just go ahead and type into the question area of your little webinar box. And if I don't get to them immediately, if I'm just, still in the middle of something, either A, my friend here, Rod Kiles, will answer them in the Windows pane, or at the end of everything, I will answer those questions at the very end. I am scheduling this to be about an hour. It might be a little less, might be a little more. But I'm more than happy to stay after, and if it's more specific to your site, or if it's an answer I don't know right off the top of my head, I can always contact you afterwards. So let's see. So our class agenda is just going to be this overview of topics, then just me kind of discussing all of the aspects of the transactions. Then we're going to have a small ungraded quiz just to make sure that I'm hammering in the right concepts. Then we'll just have our Q&A session, and hopefully we'll get out of here. We do record these specific webinars, so sorry. So if you need to pop out, then just feel free to do so. All of our recordings will be sent to you once our webinar run has finished. So you'll still be able to review that. So some of the topics that I'm going to be going over today, just kind of the conventions of Church360 Ledger and how it handles transactions, as well as how different accounts relate to each other as far as the debit credit system. Then and then we'll show each individual debit and credit, just kind of like a chart, just to show how those accounts behave. Then I'll be going over how to put in a manual deposit, as well as going over if you share your 360 Ledger with a member site, then we'll go over how to input that kind of deposit as well. Then we'll be going into putting into checks, and that will include handwritten checks as well as printing checks directly from the Church360 Ledger software. As I said, it is going to be printing checks, and then payments just for anything that doesn't require a check, and then transferring between similar accounts, and just journal entries between usually non-similar accounts. So if you needed to make any corrections, then that's what we would do. So we'll just go ahead and get started on our transactions. So just wanted to show you some conventions real quick. I will go ahead and turn my webcam off just to make the screen just a little bigger. It's as big as I possibly can get it. I think maybe after recording, you'll be able to put it into full screen mode. Maybe it'll make it a little easier for you to see. But it is as full screen as I can possibly get it, I'm afraid. But we'll go ahead, turn off the webcam. You guys can still see my screen. Good. And then just those transaction conventions. So there are some similarities between other software you guys might have used. Naturally, every transaction, it's going to have a date, just so that we can track it. It will have the option to add a memo for just a description, just to let you know what this transaction is for. We do use the dual entry bookkeeping system, so every single account will belong to a book, and every single transaction will contain 2 lines, one being for the debit and the other for a credit. So it will always have at least 2 line items, and those debits and credits, in order for the transaction to be saved, they're going to have to balance out naturally. If you need to know how one account will affect another, you can take a look at this chart. If you're interested, just email me and let me know, and I can send you this chart. But it just kind of gives the behavior of each individual account type. So first here we see the asset. We probably very used to debiting to increase it and credit to decrease it. Restricted acts pretty much the same way as an asset. It'd be kind of like a piece of the overall asset pie. And then the liability, income, and expense. So just kind of memorize that. If not, I have no problem sending you this chart. We do have this chart on our help center as well. So our first transaction, it's going to be deposits. So it's basically this area is just to allow you to deposit money in directly into asset accounts. You cannot deposit money into liability accounts, only asset accounts, as it uses restricted accounts. But we can get into if you guys need to transfer money over to a liability account, if that's the system that you have set up. But as a rule, we recommend just depositing it into asset accounts and then using those offset accounts or a restricted account to kind of follow that flow of money. So different examples, they include like your offerings, naturally, any sort of rental income if you have a rental property, just any sort of anything that's coming in, so to speak. And as I previously said, they are limited to asset and income accounts. We don't want to just deposit it into a liability or an expense just to decrease it, but we can always transfer that depending on the case-by-case basis. And our ledger software does integrate with our church management software, Church360 Members. So if you don't know, Church360 Members, it's kind of our church management software where you have all of your congregation's personal information, households, also your envelope numbers and offerings. And when you input those offerings, they can come over as deposits to Church360 Ledger, just to kind of save you kind of a manual step. So while we are looking at that, we'll go ahead and look at my little ledger site here. I hope everyone can see it. And let's see, we're going to go ahead and go up here. You see this Omni bar for different ways to access different accounts. If you ever needed to just access account, you could always just start typing it in here. It kind of acts like a search bar, but you can also just start a new transaction directly from here as well. First, I'm going to get rid of that small little bar down there. I do apologize for that. I thought I got rid of it. Story of my life. There we go, much better. So now we can just go up here to create a new transaction, and we're going to create a manual deposit. So here, first off, we have the memo, just to let you know exactly what this is for. So I could just put something, it's just a deposit that we're going to put into the general fund. So just a general deposit, just to let everybody know. If I can actually type today, you can choose a date, but we're just going to go ahead and just keep it with our current date today. And then we get to choose if we have a specific payee. Since it's just going directly into an asset account, it's not required for you to have to do that. But if you had a payee that this deposit was meant for, then you can go ahead and put that in there. But for now, we're just going to go ahead and just choose the general trust checking. So here you can see that you're going to have to choose an asset account because it only allows you to deposit into asset and income accounts. So in order to choose your asset account, you can just click here in this field and it will give you a drop-down menu. You can also start just going ahead and typing in your specific account just to make it just a little easier. But we're going to go ahead with the central trust checking. We don't want it to be restricted, so it's going to be the unrestricted area. And we can just go ahead and put 500 here. And since this is specifically for the general fund, we're going to want to add it to the general fund income account. So same as the asset, I click on here and I just choose my income account from the available choices. And here you can see that both sides are going to be completely equal. If I had another income account that I was splitting it between, then I could go ahead and add one, and as long as the total amounts to the total here, then we should be good. But here, this is about the deposit that I would have wanted, so I can go ahead and click save, and that transaction has been created. So that's just kind of let's take this off. Sorry about that. Didn't mean to put a nasty word up there, but if you wanted to also bring in a account or a deposit from Church360 members, people had donated to through offerings to specific funds related to their contribution funds in members, then it will show up eventually under pending transactions here. So if you go up here to pending transactions, it's right next to the check print queue. Here, it's just kind of like a receipt paper. If you click on here, I have quite a bit of pending transactions that I've scheduled, but I should have a deposit sometime around here in May. So here you can see this little symbol from Church360 members. It's a 600 deposit and it was given on May 27th. And if I click on here and click deposit, then it will automatically bring it up in a deposit format. So then I can add a memo. I can put, it is today's offering. Again, it requires me to actually spell. These aren't going to have any payees, but we do need to choose exactly which asset account we want these to be attributed to. Generally, we probably just want the central trust checking, but if you have a specific asset for your offerings, then you can choose that there. The amounts are automatically filled in, as well as dividing them out between the different funds. So here you can see in the orange, the yellow, and this kind of greenish color, these are the funds as they're denoted in Church360 members. So this is what the contributors specifically wanted to donate to, and usually you're going to have funds, both income and expense, or restricted to these specific purposes. So for the building fund, you can go ahead. If you click here, then you'll be able to determine exactly what account you want this building fund to be attached to. So once you go ahead and choose that, then it'll be just as when we opened this up originally, it's already connected. So from now on, whenever we get deposits for the building fund, the general fund, or the mission fund, they're already going to be connected to those specific income accounts. So once you just kind of look over everything and everything looks great, and everything, including the date, has already been entered in, all you have to do is save it. So it just kind of saves you that manual process, just so that you have more time to practice your ministry. So after your deposits, then we can just go ahead and move on to our checks. So this is a big one, both creating checks and writing them or printing them, so to speak. Our software does allow users to print checks or even just record handwritten checks. So even if you're not printing directly from the software, you're going to want to keep track of it because it is taking money out of your account. And you can go ahead and put handwritten checks into the software and just not print it. Anything from paying payroll and church bills to really anything that requires a check. And it does use both laser and inkjet checks. We have formatted our printing format based off of checks from printrevolution.co, so that's .co, not .com. It says here that you can order checks from here, but it really isn't. It really isn't required. It's just that's the format that we've based it off of. So if you have a similar format, if you have a similar format, either in the top or the middle formats for checks, being check followed by 2 stubs, or a stub, then a check, then a stub, as far as how your check cardstock is set up. If it fits, then you can definitely use it. So it's not required. I don't think we get any kickback or anything, so I don't want to say that you absolutely have to do that, but that is the format that we use. So it is recommended to at least just kind of check up on it. So with that check, let's see, then we'll go ahead and start writing a check as well. So let's see. I have my examples here, so I don't have to have just a brain fart and just have you guys just sitting here. So we can go up here to our new transaction area and we can select a check. So here we also can have a memo. So maybe I want to write a payroll check. So I could go ahead and put this in as just payroll. I can save the date as being for today. And then I can select my payee. So maybe I just want Arlene Dowling. So if she's the secretary, I want to make sure her payroll from the church is all correct. So I'm going to go ahead and write her a check. So immediately from the asset or a liability, depending on how you have your account set up, you can choose exactly where you want this check to be written from. So this is going to be where the funds are being extracted from. So I'll go ahead and just stick with my central trust checking. And let's see, I'm going to put in 652.48. And then I'm going to want to make sure that everything is marked correctly, so I know exactly where everything is, all these funds are going. So on the expense or liability side, I'm going to go ahead and put in a liability for the federal income tax. And I don't want that full amount. I just want federal to have just $95.10. And then I can choose state income tax. It kind of already knew what I was going for, so it was right there in the drop-down menu, thankfully. For state income tax, I'll just go with 22. Then I want Social Security tax, and Social Security is going to be $51.67. Then we're also going to want to make sure that we pay the Medicare tax, and that's going to be $12.08. And then we're going to go ahead and go with an expense account. Let's see. I am terribly sorry. I put those on the wrong side. I knew I was doing something wrong, but I could not remember. That is my bad. Oh, I can go ahead. And of course, now I made it upset. I swear, something always goes wrong whenever I am presenting. It is just terrible. Okay, so rewind a bit. Sorry, I will put this in as quickly as possible. But I will go ahead, put 652.48, and then I'm going to put the liabilities on the left side because that's where I'm taking it from. So I apologize for that. I just had a little flub. And then the state income tax, then Medicare, then Social Security. There we go. So I'll go ahead and put those in. 22. Medicare is 1208. Social Security is 5167. And then with all of this being connected together, hence how I found exactly where my error was, we're going to put for the expense, we're going to make sure that it is labeled as staff salary. So all of that is being tracked by the expense account, and it's all being taken out of specific both liability accounts and that overall asset account. So thank you for your patience with that. And this would just be how our check would look. And you also have the option to make that reoccurring if it's a constant monthly thing, which it might just be. Once you make it reoccurring, then you could always just edit it once it's created, depending on when you schedule that to happen. But I'll go ahead and just save that. And that would be our payroll check. So in addition to payroll, we're also going to put in just a sample bill. So say we're paying the gas bill. And we'll just go ahead, save today's date, and we'll just choose our gas company, Laclede. So once we select our payee, the check number is not going to be written until it's actually printed or saved. And let's see, for the asset, we're going to take it from Central Trust Checking. And that is going to be the amount of the bill. And for the expense, so that we can track that, we're going to put that to our gas expense account. And essentially, that's how we would save that check. So we have written two checks, one for payroll and one for the gas company that you can see from our transaction area. And you can see here that they are marked as being unprinted. So let's just go ahead and check out the print queue so that we can assign a check number and print it. So right next to the pending transactions, all the way over to the left here, is going to be our print queue. So if we click on here, you can see all of the checks that we have not yet printed. So if we wanted to go ahead and choose our payroll and our gas bill, we can go ahead and just check them off for the print queue. and we can print them out directly to your respective card stock. But also you can say, maybe I hand wrote these checks. Maybe I don't need to actually print it out onto a piece of paper anymore. Then you could also just select them and just mark them as printed. So if you mark them as printed, they're taken off of the print queue. So as long as the prints are printed correctly, you can always just make sure that they're just not shown here on the print queue. You do not by any means have to print them off, but just to make sure that all of your checks, both handwritten and printed, are accounted for, you can just go ahead and mark it as printed. And thankfully, it will always give you a just kind of a bit of a sanity check, just to let you know exactly what you are going to do. It will let you know it hasn't been printed yet. Are you sure you want to remove those? And you can say yes and confirm that, and it will take it off. It will still be a transaction in your general ledger. It's just not going to be here in the print queue anymore. So with that, there comes the question on exactly what we do with the payments that don't have a physical check. And those are just considered payments, just plain and simple. And usually they're for recording the online and electronic transactions. So debit cards or any sort of online payment or transfer, you can definitely use payments for. They are limited to just the asset, liability, and expense account types. So you want to keep that in mind. And just other examples, if you just pay online using for utility bills, or if you have any bank fees, then you can definitely put them in as just quick little payments instead of having to go through writing an entire check just for just a small bank fee and then having to mark it as printed. So we're going to go back to the drawing board and go back to the transaction area, and we're going to select a payment. And you can see here it has a very similar format to the check. The only difference is you're not going to print it, you're just going to record it. So say I wanted to go ahead, and we already took care of gas. So let's just go ahead and get our electric bill out of the way too. And so we're going to go ahead and select a payee. It's completely optional. You don't have to do it, but if I wanted to keep track of all the vendors and payees and what we pay them, then I can go ahead and select Ameren for our electric company. And for the asset, I'm going to go to my tried and true Central Trust checking and put in that bill amount. And then to mark the expense, I'm going to go ahead and use the electric expense account. And just like checks, you just save it, and there it is. Next, we have transfers. So this type of transaction, it's just anything between banks, or even just to make a line item corrections. So since it is going to be going through banks and thus bank accounts, you're going to want to make sure that they are similar account types. So basically the two very common situations are if you're transferring money from a savings account from a bank account, or vice versa, or if you had made a mistake as far as an offset account is concerned. Oop, not going to journal entries just yet. So in the event we needed to make that transfer, we're going to go back to our tried and true area, and we're going to select the transfer transaction menu. And it is just a moving from one area to another, so it's much more basic than some of the other transactions. You can just choose, whether or not you want to add in a transfer, or you could just leave it blank. Say if I wanted to just move something from general trust checking, maybe just $500 just to avoid overdraft fees, then I can add it to my central trust savings account and just move it over. And again, you can make that reoccurring, but once everything looks good, you can go ahead and just save it. Now we'll be going over our journal entries. And essentially, this is going to allow you to record account balance corrections, interest earned, bank fees, etc. It's just basically going to kind of be transfer on steroids. It will just move things between all of your accounts, just however it is you need it. So that can also be used for all of your corrections. And the difference between it and transfers is it doesn't have to be similar account types. It can utilize all 4 account types. So asset, liability, income, and expense. You can move things however it is that you need. So we're going up to this menu that I'm sure you're getting sick of seeing, but it is our absolute last transaction type, so to speak. So we'll go ahead and select journal entry. And maybe I just want to put in interest from the bank. Go ahead and keep that as our as today's date. And if I wanted to put a payee, I could, but typically for just bank interest, you're not going to really need that. So we'll just go ahead and put this here. We're going to be putting money into this asset account. So we're going to debit it to increase it. And then we'll just want to mark that in an income account specifically for interest. And that is essentially how you would make a journal entry. Like you can see here, it can utilize any sort of type, not just assets, but also income and liabilities as well as expense. You're just going to have to go back to that debit and credit table just to make sure that you're attributing things as you actually want them to be. And if you have any questions, just feel free to contact support and just kind of explain what you're trying to do, and we'll be happy to help you. But once I go ahead and log in that bank interest, then that's really all I would need. Other things like applying things in addition to interest, you can put in fees or payroll processing and really any sort of transaction correction. So I am going to go over voiding transactions, but in the event that the fiscal year has passed and voiding it really isn't an option for fear of messing up some beginning balances, then journal entries, I think that's the way to go. Other than that, it'd be just a case-by-case basis. So as I mentioned, we can also void transactions. It just completely cancels the effects of a transaction. So, if it is a desired step to fix a problem, then you can just use the void button on a transaction and it just completely cancels it. So in the background, so we're not going to see it actually on the site, but when you cancel that transaction, it's going to create a hidden reversing transaction and just kind of groups those two transactions together. Basically, this was the transaction itself, and this is us correcting it by just kind of canceling it out. And it cannot be undone. So, you do want to use caution when voiding any sort of transaction if, if it affects some sort of beginning balance, then, maybe journal entries is the way to go. But the system will still keep track of the voided transaction. It's not going to disappear, so to speak. It's just going to have those two transactions canceling out each other, essentially. Let's see. And I think that is about it. So I just have a few other concepts that I wanted to go over through our quiz. So I thought I was going pretty slow, but it looks like we're making pretty good time. So we'll just have more time for questions then. But we'll just go ahead, get through this quiz, and we'll see if there are anything that would be best gone over, so to speak. So our first poll is going to be, if a pending deposit from members will have the total given to each fund broken down so that you don't have to do it. Is this going to be true or false? All right. Looks like quite a bit of you voted. So I'll go ahead and close it. And that answer, it is true. So it does use the contribution funds to break things up so that you can determine exactly which contribution fund is going to go to which financial account. Very similar if you had used Shepherd Staff to the contributions in finance transfer as well. Now we have to wonder, if we have a handwritten check, does it actually show in the print queue? Or, since I didn't put it in as a printed check, it doesn't need to be in the printed queue. Okay. I think I got someone with my double negative, so I apologize for that. But the gist of it is, the idea of it is false, because they are all sent to the print queue. You just don't have to print them. You can just mark them as printed, just kind of as like a little cheat. They do in fact show in the print queue, which I think is why most people put true. So I apologize for that. Is it true or false that you cannot review or edit a pending transaction until it is posted? Well, anyone who has already voted, you are correct. I'll go ahead and just close that. The answer is false. So whenever you post a pending transaction, or whenever you're actually creating a transaction, I wrote it down here wrong, shocker, but before you post it, you can see exactly what the transaction is going to look like. So then you can make any sort of changes. You can change the account that a specific fund is going to. You can change an amount, however it is that you need. You can definitely make those changes before you actually click post. All right. If you are going to be creating a journal entry, applying a credit to a bank account will decrease the balance. This kind of goes back to that T chart that we saw in the very beginning. And it looks like you guys got that too, because it is true. The credit for an asset, at least, will decrease the account balance, and a debit will increase the account balance. It's not always true for other accounts, but for an asset, that is definitely true. So I think that just about wraps things up. And let's see. Did anybody have any questions? Let's see, I'm actually looking at the questions now. I did order the checks from Print Revolution. Okay. Craig Smith had an idea on allowing Intuit checks. I can definitely put that in as feedback, and it looks like Rod said the same thing. So it is definitely on its way over to our developers. I naturally can't make any promises on if or when those features will be available, but we definitely do hear your ideas, and we are definitely excited to hear your feedback. So I do genuinely appreciate you guys taking the time to just sit here and listen to me. I hope you guys take something away from it. If you have any sort of questions or any concerns about your Church360 Ledger software, please feel free to give us a call either at this 800 number or at our support email address as you see before you. So I do genuinely enjoy talking to churches, and I hope you guys have a lovely day. Stay safe, stay cool, and just God bless. So thank you so much, guys, and have a good one.